Are you telling me his full name is Buri Yaga Buri Aga Buri?
Yeah, Buri Aga Agaburi, and everyone calls him Buri.
Oh, I think I have that kind of lightsaber too.
You're a Padawan!
Yeah, my family said I wasn't ready to be a master yet. Alright, well, how do I click?
Mouse right there. It's taped over, so you can't move it. It'll just click.
Oh, that's amazing. A clicker. Well, hello everyone. I am pleased to be the first lecture to open up this 2024 Palooza. I guess I'll just get right into it. Yes.
How'd you grow that braid out so quick?
Oh, you know, it's the Force.
Oh, okay.
Force power. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
Is that Jedi touching Jedi man?
Jedi teaching Jedi man.
Are we the younglings today?
Yeah, you're the younglings.
Uh-oh.
You better behave. All right, so I guess we'll start with, obviously this lecture is the High Republic. We're going to start with how it was sort of introduced to the world. It was 2019. Disney had acquired Star Wars a while back, and it was at the Star Wars Celebration in Chicago. If you look at the... Silence your cell phones, young ones. If you look at the sort of event guide of the different panels that were going on, the one where this was announced was by far the least interesting. As you can see, they had panels about Vader VR game, Jedi Fallen Order, the theme park, The Mandalorian, and the new season of the Clone Wars cartoon. So probably if you saw this one listed, you weren't going to go to it. But some people did, and there was like live streams and stuff. And basically they announced it was called Project Luminous. And they didn't really tell anyone what it was, except that there was going to be books and comics, and those 5 authors, which became known in the community as the Luminous 5, were the sort of original people behind it. And they're all pretty good authors that they got. They weren't just handing it out to just anyone like they were in the early days. So let's fit this in the timeline here. Obviously, these things are legends, but just to give you an idea of like when they would take place if they did happen in the same timeline, High Republic is way, way closer to Phantom Menace than Old Republic stuff. Which means that as far as the Disney canon, where these don't exist, they have plenty of room to put in a new game, or, you know, there was that Knights of the Old Republic remake that was rumored. Probably they can fit that into canon. So there's still a lot of empty space. This is much closer to Phantom Menace. And as you'll notice down here, it suffers from the things a lot of Star Wars properties do, where everything has the same like year, and that's because they're like, oh, well, this happened 100 years before, and everyone on Wikipedia is like, well, that means it was exactly 100 years before. Let's just subtract 1. And so that's why the Phantom Menace was 32 BBY and everything else is a 2 at the end, because it was all even numbers that they said. So the publishing strategy, they were divided into 3 phases, each of a couple of different waves, and it was a huge multimedia publishing initiative. So the main things were novels, but there was also comics and manga and a lot of like young adult and kids level stuff as well. And it's kind of like Kingdom Hearts, where the lore is scattered throughout a lot of it.
Oh, hell yeah.
There's nothing super important in the kids stuff, at least not that I saw, so I didn't read any of it, but like theoretically there will be backstories and things that you're not going to understand unless you read absolutely everything. But as the side effect of that is that you can also just kind of jump in wherever, and they do a pretty good job of making it make sense.
Exactly like Kingdom Hearts.
And there's a ton of kids talking Kingdom Hearts. That was not meant to happen.
There we go.
All right, phase 1. If you are in the bookstore and looking at any books, phase 1 will always have the yellow logo there, and this one is called, I think, Light of the Jedi. Anyways, the first book that came out was Light of the Jedi. Second one is Into the Dark. I'll mention that because when we get to phase 3, they kind of played with those names a little bit, did a little cute thing. Lots of kids' content that won't be mentioned here. I read this one, but not this one. This is the one with Geode, but Geode shows up again later. Rising Storm and Falling Star, those are kind of the 3 main adult novels. They're kind of the backbone of phase 1. And then the young adult novels, they're more like Harry Potter type young adult, so they're not like super kiddie. And a lot of people recommend them. I haven't read those 3 yet, but I have read the ones in one of the other phases. And Star Wars is manga now, anime is the future. There'll be more slides about that. Why does this keep happening? Phase 2, there's only 2 waves. No Wave 3. What's unique about Phase 2 is that the adult novels are actually a side story, and the young adult novels have the main lore. The adult novels, Convergence and Cataclysm, are sort of like a Romeo and Juliet story about two planets. And some stuff like ties into it, but it's not like the main thing that's happening during that time. Yes?
Can you explain to me the difference between a Star Wars adult novel and a Star Wars young adult novel?
In adult novels, the font is smaller, there's more pages, and the vocabulary is a little higher. So it's like the reader group that it's targeted at.
Okay.
It's not like pornographic.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Is there something even lower for someone like me, like a colored
Yeah,
book?
yeah. There's middle age.
Okay.
There's like
Middle age.
not middle age, middle grade. So like like 6th grade or whatever. And then there's even like elementary stuff. Also, you can't really see on these, but the art style for the adult novels is kind of consistent across all the covers. The young adult ones have the same kind of consistent art, and as you go down, like you get to the point where you pick it up and you're like, okay, based on that cartoon style, I can tell this one is for ages 8 to 13, and they're all like they hire the same artist for all of them, so it works out pretty well.
Cool.
Yes.
All of the novels, are they mostly written by the same, like those 5 authors from the start?
Yeah, I think they added more as they went along. So those 5 from the start were Phase 1. I think they added a couple more as they went, but it's still a pretty tight-knit group. And then also, another thing worth mentioning is that there are a few audio dramas. So these eventually got novelizations, which is just the script printed out in book form. And it wastes, I wish I would have taken a picture, but it wastes so much paper. Because like, the font is really big and there's a lot of white space in between lines. So these are like thicker than any other book, even though it's just a script and is like, you can finish it in 5 hours. Also, there's regular comic books. I would say after the adult novels, or in Phase 2, the young adult novels, the comics are the main source of like tying everything together. And then Phase 3, which isn't done yet. I think these 4 have come out. This one came out last week. I haven't read it yet. But I have read this one and that one. And it's still going. Also, as you can see, this one has the black logo. Phase 2 had the blue logo. So you can tell right away, based on like on the spine or on the front cover, if you're looking at Phase 1, 2, or 3. Now, why does it matter what... Go ahead.
Are there any additional phases planned after this?
I don't think so. I have some theories about like maybe standalone stuff they'll do, but these are all they've announced.
I was going to ask a similar question. When does it end? At what point are they like, well, we've talked about the High Republic enough?
Sometime later, I think this year or maybe next year. Like these 3 are all coming out in like October, November. And supposedly after that, they're technically done, but if it makes them enough money, I'm sure they'll find ways to add on more.
Okay.
And so the 3 phases they're arranged. Phase 1 is kind of the backbone of the story. Phase 2 is a prequel to that story, which like explains where some of that came from. And then Phase 3 is like moving forward. Yes.
Phase 2 takes place before Phase 1?
Yeah, like 100 years before Phase 1.
Oh!
And,
Okay.
yeah. So it's like, where did all this stuff come from? And then... and then Phase 3, which is, the furthest in time, the closest to the Acolyte, that one's not finished, so no one actually knows how everything resolves. So the end of this lecture will be maybe a little, leave you hanging a little bit, because we don't actually know what happens. Phase 1. We're going to go over some of the characters here. These are the main Jedi. You know this one. The thing is, Yoda, he's alive during this time. He's technically on the Jedi Council. He's a Grand Master, but he's always off doing his own thing. I think just because they didn't want to have to write Yoda. So, like, for the first part, he's off training younglings, and then he's like goes on quests to like find out what was happening off screen. So he's actually appointed a different guy. I forget his name, but he's appointed a different guy to represent him on the council because Yoda is just like an absentee father at this point. Yes.
So you can appoint other Jedi Masters, I assume, to be your representative if you're a Grand Master?
It may just be a Yoda thing, honestly.
Like, busy I am.
He's, oh my gosh, why does this keep happening? He's already like 400 years old, 500 years old by this point. Easily the strongest Force user. Everyone respects him, and if Yoda wants to do something, no one's really going to question it. But those 2 are the other Grand Masters. They're the ones that really do stuff. Across the bottom here, a lot of these people die. I've mentioned out Opa Rancisis. Here he is in episode 1, and here he is in High Republic. He's definitely like improved the drip. Ariel Poof is alive. But out of these people, the important one here is this guy. He's Stellan Gios. He's kind of like the Obi-Wan of the era, and he's like the poster child for the Order. He has a beard, and he's just an all around good Jedi that like the media likes, and like yeah, he kind of like represents the Order, even though he's not a Grand Master. Like if there's going to be an interview, he's the one to do it. Yes.
He's got kind of like a Kylo Ren lightsaber.
Yeah, so this era had a lot of weird has a lot of weird lightsabers. To begin with, they're all like highly ornamented, so there's like gold bits on them and stuff. They're more fancy looking, but also yeah, like these things flip out, so they start up, and then when he turns on the lightsaber, they flip to the side, and then like the crossguard activates. But you'll see all sorts of different lightsabers in this era, like the Rey's hinge lightsaber from that one flashback in the last Star Wars movie. That is like a thing people use. The regular Kylo Ren crossguard. There's ones where it's just like a metal crossguard and it's like just a big sword with like a lightsaber part on the end of it.
That's my question is about that picture. Is that metal or is that blade on it? I thought it was metal, but
Yeah, so like this bottom part is metal, but there's like beams of blade that go across the top of it.
oh, so it's not even Kylo Ren. It's like
No, it's-
Kylo Ren
It's
on
like
top
a
of
wimpier version.
yeah.
And there'll be other lightsabers too that are like this without the side part, where it's just they look more sword-like. You know, they're trying to make it more like fantasy knight looking.
Yeah.
And of course, they don't always wear the gold and white robes. Those are technically the temple robes for ceremonial functions. But like half the time when there's like a ceremonial function, a big disaster happens, so they're running around in these anyway. But like you'll see a mixture of different ones. And then these are some of the other. Oh yeah. So this is a different picture of Stellan Gios, and this green girl on the side, she's Vernestra Rwoh. She first appeared in one of the comics, and then she is like kind of a main character in some of the kids' books. Yes.
Can you say that name again?
Vernestra, and then it's RWOH. So I don't actually know how to pronounce it. Rwoh, maybe. I think Vernestra is correct, though. Anyways, why is she important? She's really not. She doesn't do much, but she is important because she's in the Acolyte. So,
Whoa!
so she was Stellan's Padawan, and you know by the time of the High Republic era, she's actually a knight with her own Padawan. But like, there's that connection. She remembers kind of arguably the most important guy from the era.
Why did she decide to get the tattoos on her head?
I don't know. I think she's Miri Allen. So like Barriss Ophi and some of those other Jedi, they'll have those tattoos.
What are you saying?
Like I'm saying, her species in Star Wars before will have those tattoos. I don't know why she put them on top of her head and shaved, but like it's not too weird to have those little
You
diamonds.
just
on
said
her
a
skin.
bunch of names in it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
no, that was-
The green skinned girl from the Clone Wars cartoon.
Yeah, or like
Built her lights-
Luminara with the
Yeah.
funny hat
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, she's one of them. Here's some other Jedi. This is Avar Kriss. She's like the second most important person. She's actually the most powerful Jedi after Yoda, but she's not on the council or anything because she's out on the Outer Rim, like being the Jedi Marshal there. So she's kind of like the beat stick that the Republic and the Jedi use whenever there's a problem. There's Elzar Mann. He's kind of like the Anakin because these two have a thing going on. Yes.
I assume you'll get into the plot details later, but it sounds like there's a war going on.
So it starts out and it's like, I should mention this, like the sort of the setup is hyperspace lanes and prospecting have finally like started to work, and so the Outer Rim, the Mid Rim, and the Core are all sort of kind of becoming integrated economically and culturally. So it's kind of like a high era for the Republic. Like literally like the Republic itself, like expanding and adding worlds is like a big part of it, like integrating these planets into the government. But obviously things don't stay perfect, and there is like, it's not really a war, it's more like a terrorist insurgency on the Outer Rim.
Gotcha.
Yes.
I want to know more about Dog.
Yes, dog. That dog is called Ember, and she is a charhound, which means that the orange on there is not exactly fur, it's actually glowing. This dog shoots fireballs out of its mouth. It's a very OC type of creature. That's Bel Zettifar, that's his dog. Loden Greatstorm is his master, and then later Indira Stokes is his master because Loden Greatstorm doesn't make it. And that's Buri Yaga, a Wookiee with like a very long lightsaber with like, see that one just does have like a metal crossguard, and like the hold on part is very long too because he's a big Wookiee.
Are you telling me his full name is Buri Yaga Buri Aga Buri?
Yeah, Buri Yaga Agaburi, and everyone calls him Buri. And him and Bell are like good friends. Yes.
Can the metal crossbar stop lightsaber?
I think some of them can, if it's made of like cortosis or frick, but it's mostly like just for looking cool at this point.
Does it need to vibrate to do that, or is that all legends now?
Like, there are still vibroblades, but the vibration was never what blocked the lightsaber. You always had to have like a metal that was somewhat lightsaber resistant. The vibration just makes it cut better, and allows it to have similar stats to a lightsaber in the video games. But yeah, these two had a thing as a Padawan, and they never really got over each other. And so that's why Elzar he's the shaved one, so he's kind of like Anakin, but like he is a Jedi master, or sorry, he's a knight and he becomes a master. But like he's not as unstable as Anakin. He just has some similarities with him. Yes.
Did he get a seat on the council?
I think later on he does actually. I think.
He's nothing like Anakin.
Well, Anakin gets a seat on the council. He doesn't get the rank of master.
That's right.
So here we have the Republic. This is the Supreme Chancellor Lina So and her two pitties. You can tell they're very nice and would never maul a civilian. They almost maul a civilian. Here we have some of the ships that you can see. It's kind of seen from underneath, but that top left one is a Republic Longbeam. That's kind of the main ship that the Republic uses. It's not really a warship. It's more like the consular ship that they use at the beginning of the Phantom Menace, that red one, where it moves people around. It has armaments, but it's not a warship. And then those sort of thin ones are called vectors. Those are the Jedi ships. So they don't really have shields. They're extremely maneuverable and fast because the idea is a Jedi pilot can react to stuff better with high dexterity, and they don't have to worry about G-forces because they can use the Force to protect themselves.
So, how many Supreme Chancellors are there between her and Sheev Palpatine?
I don't think it's known exactly. Like it's like 200 some years in between, so there's probably a decent amount.
Okay, it's not like her into Valorum.
No.
Oh, okay.
Unless she lives a lot longer than I think she would.
Okay.
I think she has technically like a normal lifespan. And also she's kind of despite the fact that she walks everywhere with these hideous beasts, she is kind of like a really good Supreme Chancellor. Like her whole thing is, we want to unify the Republic. Her phrase is, we're all the Republic. So like whenever anyone's in danger, everyone will go to save them. And she wants to create she realizes that she's at a pivotal point in history and wants to create all these great works. So like big monuments or like exploration lanes, stuff to both cement her legacy and make life better for people in the Outer Rim. And that's Tia Toon. He wants an army, the Republic Defense Coalition. So we can kind of see the beginning of the militarization that sort of blossoms in the Clone Wars. Yes?
Is Coruscant still like the main hub of the stuff for this time? Okay.
Yep. And I mean, they mention things like Hosnian Prime, which is in The Force Awakens, but it's not the capital. Coruscant is the capital and always will be in our hearts. Now here we get into sort of the terrorist insurgents. So they're called the Nile. They've kind of got a weird organizational structure, as you can see here. These guys are the real leaders, these three. They're called Tempest Runners. It's all Storm themed, so you've got Tempest Runners. Tempest Runner runs a bunch of smaller groups called Storms, which has people in them called Clouds, and then the lowest ranks are called Strikes. So it's all like, Storm and Lightning themed. The guy at the top is technically not at the top. He doesn't command these three. He just has the deciding vote if there's like a tie. And he doesn't own his own troops or anything. He is just, he provides things called paths to them. So he has sole exclusive access to a special hyperspace technology that he will dole out to these people to run on their raids and stuff. And basically the way everything works is they'll go on raids and like collect a bunch of money and drugs and stuff, and then they'll party a bunch. Yes?
Is there any relation with this group to Darth Nihilus?
No, besides the name. As far as I can tell, these guys have no relation to the Sith. The guy at top, Markian Ro, only has a lightsaber because he took it off a Jedi. He doesn't have any Force sensitivity himself. Yes?
Is Nile mean something storm related I don't know, or did they come up with the theme after that name was already cemented?
I think the second one.
Okay.
Nile just sounds like, scary, like a nihilist. They are kind of like sort of amoral, just like raiding and doing whatever. But yeah, I think the storm theme came from the guy at top, who's called the Eye. He's the eye of the storm. So he's at the center, but he's not super strong or powerful. Everything rotates around him. And as time goes on throughout the books, he does consolidate more power and like get some of these people killed off and take more direct. But at the start, he's on the council and helps them make decisions, and they all kind of want him dead. But if they killed him, they would lose access to these special hyperspace technologies, which lets him go like from any point to any point, almost more like a warp drive in Star Trek. And it can go through some like interesting things and even be used in combat. normally in Star Wars hyperspace lanes, you have to go on a specific like highway. This one is like, I can just go from here to here and sort of crossways. Yes?
Then how did Poe Dameron jump into hyperspace all those random spots when running from the First Order?
Maybe he had a path engine, which is what the special technology is called. And so we will get into later how he has those. Why are the Sith during all this? They're not really mentioned or brought up in anything that I've read so far, except for the fact that these enemies, who are kind of like the B villain, they're called Drengir, they're plant monsters. They were used by the Sith at one point in the past before the Sith decided they were too dangerous and sealed them away. But again, this is kind of like, these guys are almost like the Flood, where they like share a mind and they like remember things from long ago. And so like the Sith don't seem to be doing much. This is like post the Sith being whittled down to only 2, so they're in hiding during this point, but we don't know what they're up to.
Who are the 2 Sith during this time?
Unknown. So it's, we're like 200 years beforehand, so probably, like this is long before Darth Plagueis. We know his master was called Darth Tenebris, but probably he didn't live that long either. So this is 2 Sith that are just somewhere along the chain, up to no good, presumably. So the first book, Light of the Jedi.
I like it already.
Basically, the first half of the book is dealing with and responding to the Great Hyperspace Disaster. So there's a ship flying through hyperspace, like a big one with a bunch of like colonists on it heading towards the Outer Rim. They see something like in the hyperspace tube, which shouldn't happen. They move to avoid it. They do, but the maneuver causes the ship to split apart from tension and strain. So what happens is all these thousands of millions of chunks of this giant ship get ejected from hyperspace at different points, basically like shotgunning systems. So it begins with the Hetzel system, which is like the Outer Rim's breadbasket of them like producing food and stuff. And so it's about the Jedi and their response to this disaster, like trying to mitigate losses and save people, not only people on the planet, but people who are on the ship that are still alive in like pods that are getting flung at extremely high speeds towards civilians. It's actually Bur Yaga, the Wookiee Jedi, who realizes that there's living people in some of these chunks that are coming out of space. And we get to see how the Republic and the Jedi and the different planets all work together really well during this. There's a cool moment where like a big Tabana gas canister like shoots out of hyperspace and was heading towards like the star of the system, and apparently that canister was enough to like blow up everything. So the Jedi, led by Avar Kriss, like do this mind meld thing and like shift it, and they somehow connect to all the Jedi throughout the galaxy, including Yoda back on Coruscant, who he helps a little bit too. But that's Avar's big thing, is she is able to like connect Jedi together so they can execute maneuvers and like work together in ways they normally wouldn't be able to. It's a little bit like Bastila in Knights of the Old Republic with her battle meditation, but it's less combat focused and more like, let's all force push together right now. So this was only the first of these hyperspace emergencies. There's more emergencies. There's more that keep appearing at random spots. And so the other thing the Republic has to do is predict where they're going to come through like data analysis. They hook up a bunch of astromech droids together, like millions of them on this planet, and cause it to rain on them so that they don't overheat to like run the AI model. However, there's another person who's able to just intuitively know when they're going to happen by looking at the data, and that is Mari Santeca. That's her as a child. And she is she is owned by Marchion Ro, the Eye of the Storm. She's this really old lady being kept alive in a tube, and she's being kept alive because she is like a hyperspace savant. She's where the paths come from. She can just sort of intuitively know like what the calculations are. She doesn't need a computer, she just can see it. And that's obviously a really unique ability, and that's why she's kept hidden, and why if Marchion Ro was killed and like she was killed, then no one would have the ability to use the paths. So the farm planet, they send down some Nihil raiders to there to try and like auction them off, but Bel Zettifar and his master Loden, he's the Twilight guy, they go down to save him. It ends up being revealed that the whole point of the raid was to capture some of these Jedi, and that's exactly what happens. There's some shenanigans, but Loden gets captured by Marchion Ro and kept on his ship, the Gaze Electric, actually in kind of close proximity to Mari Santeca. And actually, while he's being captured there, they actually like talk to each other through the Force a little bit, which is kind of cool. How do you capture a Jedi, you may ask? Well, you put him in like electro binders, so he's like constantly getting shocked at irregular intervals, and you keep other tortured people nearby, so he can't like focus on the Force because he's just getting flooded by like pain and like loud noises and stuff. Kassav, he was one of the other Tempest runners. He gets killed, and Starlight Beacon opens. Starlight Beacon, by the way, is this large space station out on the Outer Rim that's meant to be as like a hub for like travelers and also like a tourist destination and also a big relay for comms. Because the Outer Rim, like, communications are slow. Now there's this big antenna there basically to make communication and everything else easier. Yes?
Was the like method that they used to keep loading captured intentional, or is that just something that they did accidentally?
Markian had been planning for this. He wanted a Jedi captured, so he had set up everything specifically to counter the Jedi's known abilities. So the Santeca family, if that sounded not familiar to you, that's great. It didn't sound familiar to me at all. But this guy in The Force Awakens is called Lor Santeca. He's the guy that provided the map to Luke at the beginning and then did nothing else. So the Santecas were hyperspace prospectors during this era, like mapping out routes, which is why Mari Santeca had that sort of unique ability from that family. She was captured from them, and then the rest of them kept on doing stuff. But that is a connection to the sequel canon. Anime is the future of Star Wars. As we can see, not only some of the comic covers have an anime style, those ones are by, I forget her name, Peach Momoko. But then also there's like a bunch of different mangas in all the different eras. That one is The High Republic down in the bottom right. I just wanted to mention that. And if you guys want to peruse the first volume of the High Republic manga, I did bring it. Yes?
Is that Ezra?
Yeah, that's Ezra Bridger. When I was looking for some of the other volumes at Half Price Books, because it said on their online inventory that they had it, I was like, hey, do you guys have the Star Wars manga? And they were looking for it. They're like, it says the computer should have it. And then they went over to a shelf where it was supposed to be, and the people working there were like, no, I don't think so. And then I overheard one of them saying, like, what do you mean Star Wars manga? And I was like, oh, yeah, no, it's one of those things where they take screenshots from the movie and put them together. I didn't say anything, but I hope they found them later and realized, no, there's actually like a ton of different Star Wars manga.
Stop slamming it so violently.
I'm sorry. After Kassav, the Tempest Runner, got killed, they replaced him with this other guy. He wears a big suit. That's actually in the comic book that's about the failed Disney hotel, the Halcyon Legacy. There's a High Republic era part of that, and you can actually see a pretty good picture of this guy there. He's not... I didn't even touch anything that time. It must be one of these...
It might be the button on the side.
I have to be... I'll hold it like this. Here's a picture of Starlight Beacon. As you can see, there's even like a little Jedi thingy on top. Yeah.
What's the Jedi thingy? What are you talking about?
Like up there, you know, see how that kind of looks like the top of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant? Like this is sort of a joint effort between the Republic and the Jedi. So like there's a huge Jedi presence there in the Outer Rim, you know, facilitating things and solving disputes and whatnot. Into the Dark. I didn't read this book, but it has Geode in it. He's a living rock. The living rock does show up in some of the other books, and I really love the running gag with it, where like something will happen and then they'll be like, and Geode was too stunned to say or do anything. It's unknown how he moves. People will just like turn around and he's there. He's also a huge flirt. He almost steals a different person's wife at one point. It's like, how? He's a rock. But I don't know too much about this book, but I will get to it at some point. Yes?
Do you think there's any chance that Geode will appear in future Star Wars film or TV media?
I think it's highly likely. He's a rock. We don't know how long his lifespan is. But I would be very cheesed if he showed up in The Acolyte or even in like the hypothetical episode 10.
And he makes it through all the books.
Yeah, I mean he's very durable. In fact, he's a rock. But there's one point where he like he jumps in front of a blaster bolt that's being shot at a little girl, and he makes himself magnetically sealed, so the blaster bolt like bounces off of him.
What?
So if you remember, it's magnetically sealed from the first Star Wars movie where like they shoot at the ceiling and it bounces around. Like he can just do that to himself. He's a very funny character. I love all the running jokes they have with him. The Rising Storm. So Elzar Mann, he's the kind of Anakinish one. He goes to Tython and has like he has a vision of like a bunch of bad stuff happening to the Jedi in the future. It's like, well, I mean, come on, this is the second book of a trilogy. It can't be perfect forever. Obviously something bad's going to happen to the Jedi. Markian Ro goes to this ice planet that seems to be connected to his family's past with this. This is not a picture of the Birdman he brought with him, but it's a similar one of the same species. I think that's actually from the old fighting game. Anyways, but he does use those blades. Anyways, the reason he brings this Birdman is because he has a slight force sensitivity. And as we can see, Markian Ro's been experimenting with the Jedi and such. And he finds frozen in the ice down there where he expected some horrible monster, and it's still frozen in the ice, and we don't know too much about it, but it works exactly as he wanted, because the guy he brought with him who had force sensitivity like heals over in insanity and then death from being near this thing. So he's like, perfect, that's exactly what I wanted. The Drangir, those are those plant monsters. They're doing stuff in the comics and like off screen during this novel. They're, like I said, they're kind of the B villain. So whenever one of the kids' books or the comics or something, they want an enemy for them to fight, even the manga, it'll be the Drangir. They're these plant monsters that are spreading throughout the galaxy, seeded by the Nihil probably, and they fight and kill people with their like tentacles and eat them. But the Republic Fair is starting on the planet of Valo. Here's a picture from one of the kids' books. What could go wrong? Alzar Man versus women. Alzar Man, he has a thing going with one of the reporters that work down here. He can't keep it together. He just loves women too much. He's a Jedi, that's not allowed. Orba Lin, I don't have a picture of him here, but I think he's in one of the next slides. He is a goo man, so kind of like Geode, he's like a weird creature. He lives inside a suit that makes him look humanoid, but he's a goo man, so if the suit goes away, he's still a goo boy and he can still do stuff. So people they think they killed him by like headshotting the suit, but he's fine. He's a Jedi, by the way. During the Republic Fair, the Togruta Queen shows up. They want to join the Republic, and it's kind of like a negotiations thing. And when they see how they handled the disaster that happens here, they're more on board with that. There's a small side plot with a character, Ty Yorick. She's the one with the purple lightsaber. She's an ex-Jedi, but she got to keep her lightsaber for some reason. And she's transporting a person who invented some sort of disruptor device that turns off blasters and lightsabers. So again, and selling it to the Nihil. So as we can see, he's like hoarding anti-Jedi stuff. Lorna D, she was that green Twi'lek from before. She kills off one of the other Tempest runners. She's kind of like the main one, and she doesn't really like Marky and Ro very much, so she has a lot of side stories of just basic villainy, and like she always runs away, kind of like General Grievous whenever things don't go her way. Lina So, the Supreme Chancellor, is injured because obviously the Nihil attacked this place. We'll have pictures of it later. But it's just basically a raid to like show the Republic, haha, you ain't shit. But towards the end of the story, Bel Zettifar, he's the one with the Charhound. He's missing his master, Loden Greatstorm, the Twi'lek Jedi with the yellow lightsaber. He's missing him dearly. But he knows he's still alive out there, and they eventually find him. Loden is able to escape from the Gaze Electric and helped out on this planet where they're all fighting. However, something very, very bad happens to him. That creature that was locked up in the ice is thawed and ready to go, and Markium sends him out, and it turns Loden into a desiccated husk immediately. And the energy disruptor ends up with the Nihil. Here's a picture of Orbalin sharing a drink with Geode. And here's the Drangir. They're plant monsters. They're always like, rah, rah, we're hungry. They're dark-sided plants. There's really not much to them. Lily Tora Asi, she's a JK, Jedi Knight. And she has 2 samurai sword-looking lightsabers. She fights some of the Drangir. In the comics, they're basically dealt with by sealing them away in a bubble. They'll probably come back. Here's the Republic Fair. As you can see, guys are attacking. Also, the Nihil's combat doctrine. They wear these masks and then throw a bunch of gas everywhere. So they're always like, sometimes it's just like stinging gas, sometimes it's deadly, but they always have these masks on so that they can use sort of chemical warfare. And they also play really loud, annoying music to like... I guess it works well with the drugs they have going through their system, and it also like makes other people feel disoriented. So here we have Markian Ro without his mask. He's got this thing which is called the Rod of Seasons, which is just stolen from Zelda. That's the Rod of Seasons right there. And here we have what happened to Loden Greatstorm, the Great Jedi Master. Whatever this monster is, it basically just sucked the life out of him and turned him into like stone and ash. And basically the Jedi can't even really see this monster. Like if they look at it, they just like see a blur and they're terrified too. It's not just like it kills them, but like they become like super paranoid, like kind of thing. Like they look at people and like see monsters. Yes.
What does the Rod of Seasons do?
It is used to control the leveler beast. So
Okay.
It naturally on its planet or whatever, it hunts force sensitives, but with this ancient Sith artifact or whatever it is, he's able to command it to like go after certain things or restrain itself. This is a Jedi named Buckets of Blood. I was like, that's not a very Jedi name, but it's because his name is Torben Buck, and he is like a medic. So he's just joking with the fact that he's doing hospital stuff. Yeah. He's not important at all.
Like Burry.
Like Burry. The Fallen Star. So the station is called Starlight Beacon, and obviously it has to fall. It's in orbit around a planet, Irem, and it's helping them out with like this ecological disaster that they had. And basically, Markian Rowe sends in some suicide bombers to like take out some core systems in it. So that's like the vast majority of the book is like there's been an explosion and this thing's going down, and let's try to mitigate the disaster. So it's like the Jedi and everyone else like coming up with plans to like let's get these people off on these escape pods by rerouting the power here and that kind of stuff. I think it's actually pretty cool. But the whole time the Jedi are really paranoid because there's some of these monsters on board, and they don't really know or understand that these monsters are there. They just know that like their connection to the Force is really, really weak, and they're like constantly on edge, and they're making poor decisions, which is integral to the plan. The Leveler kills 3 people, including her. I think she's in Into the Dark and some of the other books. As you can see, she has the hinged ray lightsaber. Let's see. Avar Kriss arrives. She was in the comics, and she shows up. She goes in to help out, and then her ship gets taken by Lorna D. Her ship is like the main Jedi ship. It's called the Ataraxia, but Lorna D has taken it over, and now the ship is called the Lorna D. She names all the ships after herself. Let's see. Bell, he comes up with a cool plan. He's like stranded on the medical tower during all this because like with the explosion, there's like certain parts of the station that can't reach each other. And he actually manages to blow up the base of the medical tower so that it's free floating away from the rest of the wreck, so that one of the ships from down on the planet can like evacuate people, which is kind of a cool plan. Buryaga the Wookiee, they think he's dead. He's gone down with the ship while fighting 2 Rathtars, which are the big tentacle monsters from The Force Awakens that Han Solo's ship was all in.
Of course.
So there were some Rathtars on the ship, but there was also a shipment of fake Rathtars. Those were the monsters that are like sucking up the Force. Elzar, he's running around there like trying to turn on the thrusters of this ship to like stop it from crashing into the planet, and he sees someone working on them, and he recognizes her as a Nihil, but she's an ex-Nihil and was betrayed by them, but he just chops her down, kind of like Anakin killing the Sand People, and actually dooms the station as a result of that. So he has to leave. Stellan, sort of the main Obi-Wan type Jedi, he stays and is able to throw the thrusters a little bit, basically to avoid it from crashing on a city, and causes it to crash into the ocean instead. But he goes down with the ship also and dies. And it's like, him and Avar were good friends with them, and they really, really miss him now. And Markian Rowe has a girlfriend who's a member of the Republic Senate, who has defected and joined the Nihil now, so now he has someone that knows how to actually run a government on his side. And so here we have some pictures of the fallen thing. There's Elzar and Avar hugging. If you remember, they had a thing in the past, and obviously that's going to come back at some point in the future. So there's some extra lore from the comics. Markian Rowe's species is the Evereni. They have these pointy ears that kind of are like Warhammer Dark Elf looking things. They come from a stormy planet. So everything's named after storms because that's like what he remembers. They evolved to not trust anyone and be good manipulators because the unpredictable weather of their home planet basically forced all like social alliances to be destroyed. His ancestors have used the nameless monsters, the Levelers, before. They're also called the Shrika Ray. And he hates the Jedi, according to this comic, because he doesn't like being told what to do. And that's what the Jedi do. I don't know if there's more to his motivation than that, but I think he's just sort of like, he's a pathological, like, just wants chaos. And Chancey Yarrow, who was the character that got killed by the Jedi unfairly, she had previously made some sort of gravitic weapon, I believe, in Into the Dark. And this comes back, they're called Storm Seeds, and they create the Storm Wall. So shortly after Starlight Beacon falls, like maybe a month later, Markian Rowe like cuts off a big chunk of the galaxy with these, so you can no longer use hyperspace to get to that part. So it's like, it's totally out of contact, the Nihil have full range there. They can use their path engines to get in and out, but nobody else can get through the storm wall. Yes?
In that picture, does he have the droid from Jedi Knight Fallen Order?
Yeah.
Whoa!
It's not the same one, but it's like the same type. And again, these monsters are called the Shrika Ray. I know it looks like it says Shrika Rai, especially you anime watchers, but in the comic it says it rhymes with away, so it's got to be Ray. Now, they're also called Force Eaters, aka Eaters of the Force, and that's what they're called in their language. That's what Shrika Ray means. So if you think about it, the preposition of like relates to things. That's probably ka in there, right? Because it's short and it's between the other two things. So Shri and Ray, one of them is eater and one of them is force. And it's up to you which one you think it is. But I think it's very interesting that it's very possible that the word Ray in an ancient language means force, given that Ray is like the ultimate
It's all
Jedi.
connected.
That's why she didn't need to train.
So here's a map of the occlusion zone is what they call it. So you've got Nile space and then sort of the Republic's outside. And in phase 3, they're trying to like breach the wall and get back and forth. But it's, so here we have some more pictures. This is what like a normal person would look like if you're a Jedi under the influence of one of those beasts. So like they start hallucinating and freaking out and being really afraid. We finally start to get some pictures of what they look like. They're basically these four-legged like animals with like a Cthulhu mouth type of thing. And they don't really seem to do much to normal people. They can be killed by blasters or even a lightsaber. They're not like, they're durable, but they're not super durable. Their main thing is they're spec'd into anti-Jedi. A regular person or a regular squad of people who's ready for one could probably take one down fairly easily. But if there's a Jedi nearby, like they really can't do anything about it. So let's get into phase 2, and I will get into phase waterball.
How far into the lecture we is, Michael?
I think we're on a good pace here.
That's not what I asked.
Oh, probably halfway or a little more.
Okay. Oh, a little more. Wow.
Yeah,
There's a
and,
lot in phase 1.
yeah, and so by the way, the Great Hyperspace Disaster, I don't think I mentioned that, that was caused by the Nihil. That near collision in hyperspace, basically someone used their path engine to go in the route of someone else. So it was all planned. You know, all this terrorist activity was intentionally orchestrated by Markey and Rowe.
I hope that it immediately cuts into that explanation that Michael just
So in phase 2, the adult novels focus on these two planets, Irem and Arano. It's kind of a Romeo and Juliet situation. These planets have been in what's called the Forever War, which has only lasted about 5 years. I think that's a little short to be called forever. But the heirs of both kingdoms or whatever like have a thing, and they get married. So like that's kind of how the war gets fixed, is because of their leaders falling in love. But again, it relates to some of the characters, but it's less important than the young adult novels, which give the backstory to the Rowe family and the nameless monsters, and also like some of the other stuff that's going on. There's an audio drama called The Battle of Jeddah, which we can talk about a little later. But I just want to rant for a little bit right now about the fact that it is an audio drama, and there's a character, a Jedi named Creighton's son, and there's a barkeep called Creighton, and they say it the exact same way in the audio drama. If you're just listening to it, you don't know if they're talking about Creighton or Creighton. Very stupid. Why not just name one of them something different?
Try just using the scroll wheel.
Oh, will that work?
Usually
We'll
it
find
does.
out on the next one.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Cool. Okay, so Path of Deceit. That's the first phase 2 young adult novel. This takes place on a planet called Dalna, and seems like that's where the monsters come from. One of the Jedi remembered that Shrika Ray thing was like a song that he remembered from his childhood that someone from Dalna taught him. Yes.
And as a reminder, this is a prequel to all this stuff in phase 1.
Yes, this is hundreds of years earlier.
I
So
did
this,
forget that.
yeah, thank you for mentioning that. So on this planet of Dalna, which is kind of this outer rim backwater, we have two cousins, Marda Rowe and Yana Rowe, and they are both in a force cult called the Path of the Open Hand. Yana's not really into it, but like their parents are dead or whatever, so she needs someone to take care of them. Marda is very much a true believer in the Path, and the Path is run. It was originally made up by this guy, Worth Pluth. Yes.
Is that a Na'vi from Avatar holding a lightsaber?
No, he's a Pantoran. If you remember from the Clone Wars, there's a species of blue people on like a cold planet, and he's one of them. Yes.
Wasn't the planet in Avatar called Pandora?
It was, yeah. I think they're probably a reference to it. But this force religion, force cult thing was taken over by her. She just called herself the Mother. And it's established very early on, not explicitly, but it's pretty obvious if you're just reading, like, she's basically mind-tricking everyone all the time to like her. Whenever something starts to go wrong, she'll, like, walk into the room and everyone's like, and then I felt really calm and, like, very confident in her leadership. And so she's just kind of showed up. However, the doctrines of the Path of the Open Hand are that the Force is really good and we shall like it, but never use the Force, because every action has consequences. If you use the Force, that uses up some of the Force, so that means someone else doesn't get the Force. And if you like levitate something here, there'll be like a disaster on some other planet elsewhere. Yes.
Is there any evidence of that whatsoever?
No. In fact, later on, they go to a convocation on the planet Jeddah, which you may remember from the one about the Death Star. I forget what it's called. Where like all the different.
Rogue One?
Rogue One, yes. yeah. So there's all these like different Force religions there. At one point, they show up and they talk to the convocation, and every single one of them's like, "No, that's not how the Force works." And no one's ever seen evidence of that. But obviously, bad things do happen all the time. So the mother's able to see, like, see, it's the Jedi's fault that the rain destroyed our crops or whatever. So they hate the Jedi because they are abusing the Force. That, however, does not stop Marta from getting into a little relationship with a Padawan there named Kevmo Zink, which I think sounds a little bit like Kypno, which is kind of cool. So obviously, relationships are forbidden among the Jedi, but among Padawans, it's kind of like, they kind of look the other way a little bit as long as it doesn't go too far.
That doesn't sound dangerous at all.
Well, it does get dangerous for Kevmo because obviously, like he's helping out at their like cult compound and stuff, and like stuff goes wrong, and he's able to use the Force to help him, and everyone like turns on him because like he shouldn't be doing that. But she likes him, and she's trying to convince him of her way of things, and they're having these conversations. But eventually, like she does land on the side of the Jedi suck, because Alicia, she was given this thing. So while she's running this cult, and they're just like they're helping people out and doing all this nice stuff. But in the background, she's sending out her members to like raid like royal treasuries and like ancient tombs and stuff for Force artifacts, and she's selling a lot of them to make a bunch of money. But supposedly it's to hoard the Force artifacts so that no one can use them. But what she really wants is some of these cool weapons, like this jewel, which is actually an egg. And when she touches it a little bit, her skin starts to turn gray and flaky there. This is the egg of one of those monsters, the Nameless, the Leveler. And her plan is basically to hatch a bunch of these and use them against the Jedi and for whatever purpose she wants. Yana gets blackpilled with all of this when some of the children that the mother sent out get killed, including some of her good friends. And at one point, Marta becomes sort of the guide of the path. She sort of finagles her way into it. But it's a very tenuous situation. The mother doesn't like sharing power. And we also learn that it's an egg. Towards the end of the book, both Kevmo and his master get killed by the Leveler, and Marta sees this and she's like, he shouldn't have been using the Force. So she goes basically all in at that point. Here's things from the comic book and also the audio drama about the Battle of Jeddah. Here we have some of the Force convocation. There's some of the different groups. There's the Sorcerers of Tund, who in Legends were fully dark side. Here they supposedly are light side, even though they control fire as their main thing. That's a little weird, but whatever. We also have the Guardians of the Wills, who's that guy with the staff in Rogue One. He was one of them. There's some like Keldor guys. There's also, this person is the leader of what's called the Church of the Force. They're interesting because they follow Jedi tenets, but they don't have the Force themselves. So they're kind of like Jedi fanboys. Yes.
So even though like the sequel movies didn't do all the Wills stuff, that's all still canon to Star Wars.
Yeah, I think a lot of them probably got killed during Order 66, which is why they're not in the sequels so much. Mm-hmm. Because Palpatine didn't want any other Force groups out there to challenge him, not just the Jedi. In Rogue One, you can actually see there's this crashed statue. Within this story is when it actually falls over. There's actually a vault inside with like Sith artifacts that the Jedi were hiding, and that's actually where the staff, the Rod of Seasons, comes from.
Oh, nice.
And the rod has there's like 3 parts to it, and you can connect 2 of them together, and the 3rd part is lost or whatever. But for all intents and purposes, it's one thing. Some of the other guy, that's Tay Zirek. He's a member of the Guardians of the Wills, and he's only important because he shows up later. And that's Olivia Zeveron, who's like kind of the main Jedi in the comics for this. And her master, this furry, gets eaten by it. So there you can see Yana Ro, and there's Worth Pluth using the thing to control it. A lot of Jedi get killed during this, but because most of the time it's only killing Jedi, and so even if a Jedi survives, they don't really know what happened. They're just like, someone turned to stone, and there's this scary presence that I couldn't sense in the Force. Path of Vengeance is the second one. It's kind of got the aftermath of Jeddah. There was a battle on Jeddah, basically. The Path of the Open Hand showed up there, and they started like basically causing a bunch of chaos and was sending that monster around. And also Irem and Arano, those 2 planets that had the Romeo and Juliet situation, they were there for peace talks, and people were getting blown up, and so it was like a whole thing. But really, the most important part is that the path fled, and now nobody likes them anymore. So Marta Rowe's control over the path is slipping. The mother's kind of back in control. The mother sends a broadcast that basically throws that Nautilin Kit Fisto looking dude under the bus and says he was the reason all this stuff happened, not me. But Yana frees him because they're kind of working together. And the mother sends a mission to what's called Planet X. Now, if you think that's a dumb name, so does the author of this book. It was named in one of the like children's books, and so they even mentioned like this sounds like a name that a little person would have come up with. But Planet X is like this really weird place where like there's like mushroom trees and like glowy stuff, and everything's like super alive with the Force. Like if you get cut there, it'll start healing almost immediately. But that's also where the Nameless come from. And so they scoop up a bunch of eggs and flee, and now there's a bunch of these things. Also on the way out, they do this like hyperspace jump. Something about how like supercharged this planet is with the Force seems to awaken Force abilities in people that normally wouldn't have them. And it's not like a permanent thing, but like while you're there, you can kind of do it. And someone manages to do these weird hyperspace calculations that get them out of danger. And it seems like that may be somewhat of the progenitor of the Path engine. And then the Jedi, having realized that 2 of their number were killed earlier, they kind of converge on Dalna, and there's like a big fight. The aftermath of the fight basically is a bunch of Jedi get killed by the Leveler, and people escape. Marta eventually takes the staff and uses it to kill the mother, and then she runs off on her own. She takes the ship that the mother had been using, was building to basically preach from. That ship was called the Gaze Electric, which is what Marky and Rowe ends up using later. And so they're basically, Marta Rowe is obviously his like great-grandmother or whatever. Also, there was one of the things about this cult is that they would put like blue waves on their forehead. It represented like harmony and balance in the Force or whatever. As she became more militarized, it became 3 straight lines and then eventually 3 jagged lines. And the 3 jagged lines are the symbol that the Nihil use. So it's like, basically because Marky and Rowe is like sort of the descendant of this group, he uses some of their iconography and ideas and names for his like, terrorist organization, although he doesn't really believe in any of it. And let's see, Creighton, Son, the Jedi, and Yoda meet afterwards. Not in this book, in a different book, and they basically say, many of our Jedi killed by this thing were. Should we mention anything about it? No. Erase all mention of it in the Jedi archives, lest people be afraid. So they just sweep it under the rug and don't do anything about it. Yoda's probably like investigating a little, but the fact that like, 100 years later or whatever, these things start killing Jedi en masse probably made Yoda feel like a bit of a fool for not doing anything about it right now. So now there were some comics that came out a little bit between, like sort of at the start of Phase 3. So as we can see, that purple guy from before comes back and saves some people. He looks way cooler now. See, Lorna D is still hanging out. She's got metal things on her head tails now. There's this guy who's like a Jedi hunter. He's called the Child of the Storm, and it's unclear what he is, but he has ears that kind of look like Marky and Rowe. I think he's like a clone or maybe some other experiment, because Markian at one point in the comics finds this Ithorian who's in jail for war crimes, and he says, I remember your people. He was actually one of the younglings in the cult back in the day, so he like saw everything that went down. But now he's like, he loves to do human experimentation, and so he's working for the Nihil now, like coming up with new things. Here we see, this is Orbelin, the goo guy outside of his suit. He saves Olivia from attacking someone. Also, I forgot, the mother was actually Olivia's sister. So the reason she started and took over this cult is because she was jealous that the Jedi chose her sister to join them and not her. So that's why she hates the Jedi now.
Oh.
But she's dead, it doesn't matter. There's a ton of these monsters now, the levelers. It's not clear exactly how the Jedi are going to deal with them. And of course, most of this is sort of behind the storm wall. So, the Nihil are basically having free reign. Some of the Jedi were trapped back there because it just sort of went up unexpectedly. Avar Kriss is one of them who's back there. Elzar Mann, her quote-unquote lover, is on the other side, and he's trying to reach her. Bur Yaga actually did survive the fall of Starlight Beacon. Bell scooped him up out of the water, so he's back. They're both Jedi Knights now. Why are they Jedi Knights now? Because of all this emergency stuff happening, the Jedi have declared the Guardian protocols are now active, which basically means, A, we're going to fast-track Padawans becoming Knights, so we have more Knights to go around. B, our lightsabers are going to be less cool looking now because like we're in a war kind of thing. So like we have to make them faster. Like they're going to get lost all the time, so we have to just make a bunch of them. And they're taking a more active role in galactic affairs, sort of kind of leading us into how we see them in the prequels, where they're where the Republic's sort of sending them on missions not just for peacekeeping but also for a little bit more warlike stuff. Yes.
Is this not still before all the stuff in Phase 1?
I didn't. Sorry. This is Phase 2 is over. This is like the very beginning of Phase 3. It's kind of like a bridge. Like there's a couple comic books and stuff that sort of like ease you into it. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. Lorna D, like I said, she comes back with the Ataraxia, the Jedi ship, and they eventually kick her out and take it back. A Trandoshan Jedi, who I didn't mention before, his name is Skier. He was supposedly dead on Starlight Beacon. He's also alive behind enemy lines and Orbulans. So there's like a lot of chaotic things happening.
How old is Olivia if her sister was the mother who looked older than her now in the prequel books?
Sorry, this isn't Olivia. I was wrong.
Okay.
This is a different Jedi who looks very similar to Olivia. She's the Padawan of the Trandoshan scaly Jedi. I mistook that, and that's probably part of why we thought we were still in Phase 2. I got a little confused.
Where's Olivia?
She's long dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happened to her?
I don't know. She was alive during the last book, and somewhere in the intervening 100 years, probably she aged and died. Yeah. Although there are still some people from Phase 2 who are around and kicking during this. Obviously, this guy who's now really old, he was in Phase 2. The Athorian, like, war crime guy, he was a baby and now he's big. And there's also a general who was like fighting in a war back then, and she now works for the Nile. So there's some people that, longer lived species who have made it between these two eras.
How did the situation with the mother get resolved?
Like I said, during the big fight in the tunnels on Dahlin when the Jedi were attacking, Marta Rowe decided, she realized that the mother was using the Force to mind trick people and like was looking out for herself. So she took the rod and basically had one of the levelers kill her. Because, she was the mother was the sister of a Jedi. She had enough Force that like basically it wanted to kill her, and it did. Okay. And she took off and started what eventually became the Nile, I assume. It's a little unclear there, like exactly how that lines up, but she had these leveler monsters. One of them had to have ended up surviving and being frozen in ice on the ice planet that Mark and Rowe later retrieved it from. The Eye of Darkness. This is a book that I started reading, but didn't finish before this. But basically, it's about like what's going on at the start of Phase 3. He still has that lightsaber that he stole from the Twilight Jedi because it looks really sick, and he doesn't know how to use it, but he'll like cut someone in half with it. He's not a duelist, but like anyone can just kind of pick up a lightsaber and scare people with it. So it's about, there's the storm wall, and there's people on both sides of it, and trying to reach each other and get through, and obviously there's all this crazy stuff with the Nile. But even if the Republic and Jedi forces manage to breach the storm wall, how can the Jedi ever fight back against them? And I'm pretty sure that the Nameless thing is not resolved in this book, because there's yet another book after this called Temptation of the Force. And obviously, they managed to breach the storm wall, and I haven't read this one yet. It came out like last week, but based on the cover and the title, I'm pretty sure I know what it's about. But that is actually as far as my lecture goes. That is the High Republic era. Does anyone have any other questions? I know it's a little unsatisfying, but the story's just simply not over yet.
Would you say these are good?
Yeah, I think they're all really well written. There's cringe dialogue here and there, but like that's always going to happen.
What was your favorite of the stories you read?
I think my favorite was The Fallen Star. I really liked, they're on this like space station and the power's out and crashing, and they're like, figuring out ways to make the situation less bad the whole time. So it's not super action heavy, but it is like people talking about like plans and stuff.
Are you ever going to go back and read all the books you skipped? Or now that the lecture's done, are you like, whew?
Well, I bought them and they're sitting on a pile, so I have to read the same thing. Yeah, so let me actually scroll back and let's take a look at which books I own and bought for this. And also for myself.
We've come a long way.
Yeah, longer than I thought. Come on. Okay. So I own this one and this one, this one and this one, that one and that one, and this one. I don't own this one. I also own every single comic that's come out in trade paperback form. So like not the single issue ones, but the like compiled ones. I own the book form of this audio drama. So the audio dramas, like I said, they publish a script.
How many of the comic things are you talking about that you own? You said you own them all. How many are there?
Let's see. It's probably like 8 to 10 at this point.
Oh,
it's
okay.
not an exorbitant amount. There's typically like 2 or 3 of the trade paperbacks per phase, and then plus one like side story.
Gotcha.
I own this one and this one and this one and that one and that one and that, but not the manga because I couldn't find it. Phase 3. I don't actually own any of Phase 3 except these 2 comics, but this one just came out, so hopefully soon I can find the rest of these because I'm literally so close. I have 8 books, and that's it, plus the manga. Also, when I mentioned they did a cute thing earlier, the first young adult novel was Into the Dark, and the last one will be Into the Light. So that's kind of like, yeah.
Whoa.
But yeah, so we don't know exactly how it matches. You know, at first I was just going to buy the 3 Phase 1 books, which I did, and I was like, yeah, Phase 1, that'll be the main thing. And then I went to the used bookstore and I saw all these other books, and they're all like $8.99. I was like, I should probably just get them all, and I did. And now I've come so far, I feel like I just have to buy the rest of them because like I'm this close.
Fill out the shelf.
I have to fill out. See, they're on the ground right now. My shelf is already full of other stuff. So. Yes.
You mentioned they thought that the Wookiee Jedi died in
Mhm.
that crash. Did he actually die?
He did not actually die. Bell Zettifar scooped him out of the water. Basically, when the space station crashed, he somehow survived the crash and ended up inside a cave with air in it. And Bell, his good friend, could sense that he was still alive, and he led an expedition for like several weeks and eventually got him. And that is detailed mostly in another book that's not on this list called The Tales of Light and Life, which is a bunch of short stories from like different people's perspectives at different points throughout the timeline. Kind of like from a certain point of view, which is that for the main trilogy, if you've ever heard of that.
So Birdie's still out there?
Burry is still out there. Him and Bell are like, they're patrolling the edge of the storm wall because Nihil raiding parties come out of it, so they're like saving planets along the edge.
Whoa.
Yes.
How long of a time period does the novels that you've talked about here cover?
Altogether, it's like 200 years. I can get you
Oh
more
yeah,
exact number.
including the prequel. But,
Yeah,
right.
because Phase 1 and Phase 3 are like a year apart.
Okay.
Yeah, does this mention anything? Yeah, so 150 years before that's the Phase 2 stuff, and then a couple years after 232. So like, altogether it's a little under 200 years.
What characters or plot elements do you think will be carried over into the Acolyte television show?
So I think probably some of the ship designs will show up. I would expect that the levelers have been taken care of by the end of the High Republic. Like, it wouldn't make sense for that to still be a threat. There may be Nihil remnants still running around, or like people mentioning them, because it wasn't that long ago, right? The Acolyte is exactly 100 years after the hyperspace disaster, so like it's still pretty fresh. I would think that that faction, the Nihil, have like done a bunch of stuff throughout the galaxy. Probably there's still some people that are either part of it or imitating it, or even just like leftover masks and stuff. I would think that since Yoda is mostly absent during this, the fact that he comes back kind of in Phase 3 and does a bunch of research on like the Nameless, I think that's going to drive his actions if he's in the show, of like being slightly more paranoid, like things, like the Jedi aren't perfect, things are out to get us kind of thing. And maybe that leads into why the Jedi Order is more strict in The Phantom Menace than it was here, and more centralized. One thing that I'm pretty sure they have said is that there's more, in the Acolyte, there's like offshoot temples that are like farther out, like in the galaxy to like sort of spread the Jedi presence. And that's a thing in the High Republic, where it's like the Outer Rim, like the Jedi can't go back and forth to Coruscant all the time, so they kind of have like local chapters, if you will. I would also expect that some of the other like Force religions that were mentioned, first in Rogue One, but also in like the Battle of Jedha and stuff, they may show up as well. But I don't think the main conflict with the Nameless Force Eater monsters will do anything. I do think the Drengir might show up again, because they were sealed away, and it seems like they may come back a little bit in Phase 3, but probably they won't be fully dealt with. I wouldn't be super surprised if there's a few of those plant monsters running around for the Jedi to kill. I think that would make a lot of sense. Yes.
Which one was your favorite book?
Yeah, I think The Fallen Star was my favorite book.
Oh, you already answered
Yeah.
this question.
Yeah, although
My
I
bad.
no, you're good. The Phase 2 young adult books were good too, but you know they're not as super connected. But it is interesting, like seeing from a different perspective of like you know if the Jedi come in and people don't like them.
Which one's your least favorite book? Have you already been asked that?
No, you haven't.
Oh, okay,
I
good.
have. Probably the Phase 1 book, The Rising. No, sorry, The Battle of Jedha is my least favorite book because it was an audio drama and then they published the script. And let me rant about it for a little bit. The stuff that happens there isn't super duper important. I feel like the comic book covers it fine, so you don't need it to begin with. Second, it being an audio drama, if you're just listening to the audio drama, the last third of it is like unintelligible because there's like a big fight going on. So obviously, unless someone's like, "Wow, that laser just blew up the Republic cruiser," you're just going to hear a blaster sound and an explosion. And unless someone reacts with weird dialogue, you don't actually know what happened. But it is written in the directions in the novelization form. But again, the novelization is not really a novel, it's a script. So it's like there's no good way to accomplish it. Probably the best way is to listen while reading. But even then, I would have preferred a regular audiobook to the audio drama form. Yes?
What is the stupidest lightsaber design in the High Republic era?
I still think Orla Jareni with her hinged white lightsaber is really dumb. You can see her holding it in one of the covers here. Okay, actually, let me scroll forward so you can actually see it bigger. I've never thought that the hinge is a good design. It doesn't make any sense why you would have it. Is she there? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's like, okay, I guess if you want a double-bladed lightsaber, which isn't a very Jedi thing to have anyway, but like, why would you have it fold in half? Just have the two sides turn on and off. It doesn't make any sense. Yes.
In line with that, is there any ever talk about like lightsaber maintenance? I feel like if you have something like that, there's more points of failure, obviously. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit about how like it takes them a long time to make their lightsabers because they're fancier, and as they move into the Guardian protocols in Phase 3, it gets more utilitarian, kind of more like the lightsabers we see in the main storyline of the movies. Because basically, it's not sustainable if the Jedi are going to be fighting sort of a proxy war to have lightsabers that take years to create. Like they're going to lose them in battle. You need other ones to be able to be made quickly. And I guess the other thing that's throughout is that there is what I would call a quota in each book of... there's always a gay couple in every single book. Let's put it that way. And I think that says something interesting about Yoda, because as I mentioned, he was absent during most of this era, and there's all sorts of gay people. And then Yoda's present in the main trilogy, in the prequels and the main trilogy, and there's no gay characters in Star Wars. And then he dies in Return of the Jedi,
sequel.
and in the sequel trilogy, there's gay people again. So, I don't know. Very interesting things we learn about Yoda. But, yes.
Do you think they'll have gay people in the Acolyte?
100%. It's not a good question.
are there any gay people in The Mandalorian?
I haven't seen the most recent season. I can't remember if there are any.
I don't
ones we
remember
watched.
any in seasons 1 and 2.
There's the one lady that likes the droids, though.
So it might be a biological field.
Yoda's effect hasn't worn off. He's died too recently.
But yeah, unless anyone has any other questions, that is the end of my lecture.